Driving, proud to be supported by Bidding Classics, the online classic car marketplace with more cars added every week. Diamond Bright, protecting, cleaning and caring for the furious fleet and for yours with 10% off using code FD10. And Lancaster Insurance cover the furious fleet. They are one of the biggest specialist insurers in the UK, covering all areas of vintage to modern classic cars and motorbikes. Follow the links in the description below. Hello and welcome to Furious Driving, and I'm in the little Punto, the oldest Punto in Great Britain as far as me and the Fiat Club know, and we are on the road to go and collect another one of the fleet. Do you know, I haven't really done enough driving videos here in the Punto, which is a great fun little car. I thought about doing a driving video up to the Festival of the Unexceptional in it the other day, but to be honest, it was such an easy run, it would have been a very boring video indeed, because all I did was get in the car, turn the key, and then arrive having just audible for about 3 hours. So yeah, not really an exciting driving video. This car is just too good for that kind of level of peril. But currently I'm on the way over to the barn right now. As I say, Fiat is going to have its first look at driving inside the barn, see if we can find somewhere, a little corner somewhere to stash it out of the way. But we're going to bring the Freelander out because the Freelander has got a couple of problems which need sorting out before we take it on a camping trip fairly soon. So let's get over there and then get that looked at. Gosh, this thing really does lean. And here we are over in the barn of dreams, as I call it, or barn of shattered dreams, as it more accurately is, here with the Rover 220 Coupe. I'm going to start on the head gasket, I think, maybe this coming week. Actually, I've got some time to go and do that. I'll start taking that apart. Volvo 740 soon to be turboified. Rover 200 VI, which I need to get back on the road. Actually, I'm going to tax it this week because it's after the first. I can start driving this one again without wasting weeks of tax. But this is what we're here for. There's also a Mini over there, but this is what we're here for. The Freelander Hippo, who we have not seen in a while, in a hot minute, as they say. Now, there's a couple of things wrong with this car, nothing too serious, but it was noted during the last MOT that the tyres, although they look pretty decent, they've got a sizable amount of tread on them, are, well, basically they're starting to crack a little bit. It's kind of hard to see now they're all muddy, but they are pretty old and, well, they've got cracks forming, and so they're quite hard rubber now, which doesn't give the best grip, and it's also incredibly loud. Actually, looking at the back tyre, looking in the tread of these rather nice BF Goodrich Baja Champions, you can actually see cracking appearing between the tread. And I did have a hunt around for the date, and I think it said 16/16, so that's the 16th week of 2016, which makes these things, quick maths, about 7 years old, which is kind of on the cusp of, okay, 5 years is kind of where they start cutting off, and 10 years is where it's dangerous to drive on, basically. So over 5 years old, you kind of start looking at how old a tyre is. Thinking about that, actually, the tyres on my Rover 2000 are over 10 years old, and because I haven't used the car a great deal, they're going to be time worn to beyond safety, which is a shame. Anyway, so that's problem number one. That is making lots of noise, the handling's not as it should be, and we want to try and keep that good and safe and nice. And so got a lovely set of Falken all-terrain, all-season tyres waiting over at Commercial Tyres to be fitted first thing in the morning. But that is masking a second problem. That is that there is a wheel bearing grinding in this car. I think it's probably the front left, but it's very hard to tell. And the noise of the tyres is such that when you're on the road, you can't actually hear where it's coming from. So I'm hoping that with a set of fresh tyres on there, we can drive it down the road and actually work out what's broken, and then we can address what's fixing it. Because in a couple of weeks' time, we are taking this thing, the roof tent, on that thing, on holiday. Well, for a few days anyway. It's booked, so I've got to get it fixed. Nothing like a deadline, eh? Right, let's get this thing out the barn, get the Punto in the barn. And I was actually wondering on the way over whether this gap here would be just wide enough to squeeze the Punto into, because the Punto is very narrow. But I'm thinking now, I'm looking at it, maybe not. I will pace it though. Well, it's in, and unsurprisingly, the little Punto fits very easily where the Freelander sat a minute ago. Incidentally, I do already have a rather lovely set of Falken ZXs here on the 200 VI, which is the same tyre that I put on Quentin the convertible, and they ride really well. In fact, I'm going to see if I can get a set of these for the Alpha 145, because the Alpha 145 tyres I also noticed were looking a bit age cracked as well the other day, and I know that needs new suspension on the Alpha, but I think that new tyres will certainly go a long way to improving the feel of that regardless. Anyway, I did a quick pace up, and it's 5 and a toe wide of my trainers, and the gap here between the 200 VI and the stairs is about 5 3/4, so it would be very, very tight, but it would be technically doable. I mean, it might be the kind of thing I'd have to stick the car onto skates and rotate it, and probably put the Punto in first so you've got more turning angle, and then put the 200 in second, and probably have to take the Mini out in order to, or maybe could turn around, no, probably take the Mini out so you've got the turning base. But yeah, in theory, come winter time, when everything's off the road for the bad weather, I could get the Punto here alongside a 200. That's efficient use of space. That would be 6 cars in here. That would be insane. What would be a better use of space would be to get a single post mobile lift and lift the 200 or Punto up, and then, yeah, that'd be a better way of doing it. Anyway, that's high enough to do, really, isn't it? That could be 2 cars high. I need to measure this, but I think that'd be 2 cars. That'd be fine to do a mobile lift just there and do 2 cars high. I don't think that's a problem. Right, Punto's here. I think I'm actually going to put this on to charge because whoops, the Freelander was on charge and fired immediately up, no problem. This one, I think the battery is a tiny bit tired in it as well, even though it's a fairly new battery. It doesn't seem to hold a charge very well. So I'm going to put this onto maintenance charge, because a few of these cars are on maintenance charge. It makes such a world of difference when it comes to firing them back up again. The VI, oh, it wasn't, oh, what's the VI's battery charging on? Volvo's definitely on charge. Punto will be on charge. This one's disconnected, so it can't go flat because it's going nowhere. This one was on charge. Where's its battery charger gone? Oh, I hate it when I do things without my brain telling me. Right, that's all hooked up and topping up nicely. That'll be ready to go next time I want to move the car, which is good. Instantly, there's a link to these things on the Amazon affiliate store down below the video. That helps pay for many, many things. Well, not many, many things, because people don't buy that much, but every purchase is a couple of pennies, and that chucks money towards fixing all this stuff. Right, let's get the Freelander home. Wow, I'm back in the Freelander. I haven't driven this car in a while, actually, not since, well, pretty much just after its MOT a couple of months ago. I've forgotten it's quite a fun, nice car, entertaining thing to drive. Its lack of dynamic capability makes it quite a lot of fun. However, the thing I had with this car is that the loudness of the tyres masked the fact that something was getting noisy underneath it. I've put a few miles on the Freelander now just to sort of give the brake discs a chance to scrape off any rust that have formed on them and that kind of thing. And the thing that really is overwhelming in this car is the smell of dogs and generally needing a good clean up. It was quite nice, actually. I may have mentioned this in another video a couple of weeks ago. The owner of the red Primera that was in the Festival of the Unexceptional concourse popped down with that car to go and have a video made of it. And he brought with him his friend Dan, and they are the previous 2 owners of this car, which is really nice. So yeah, Chris owned it immediately before me. He swapped, or part swapped, this and some money for Quentin the convertible, and he'd bought it from Dan, who has a channel called Car Addict Northeast, and he's a MOT tester and garage mechanic, so he's pretty handy. And Dan went through all the things he'd done on this car, and there were quite a lot, to be honest. And he was telling me about the gentleman he'd bought the car from previously, and he'd used it as his shooting truck, basically, to chuck his guns and his dogs in and go shooting, and that's why he spent the money getting the 4-wheel drive fixed on it, which is really quite cool. Otherwise it would have been yet another 2-wheel drive Freelander. Unfortunately, it was very sad to hear that the previous gentleman had actually just passed away very recently, so very, very sad to hear that, but he did a good job, despite the fact he abused this car quite a lot by the sound of it. He did do a lot of effort into keeping it running, and Dan did the work for him. Anyway, I'm on the road now, and I've been listening to the noise. You might be able to hear it if I shut up a minute. Something's squidgeting along down there. It's getting a bit irritating, but it doesn't want to stop doing squidgeting noises, and that's a bit annoying. But anyway, It almost sounds like it might be the brakes. It could be a wheel bearing, can't really hear, or it could be the brakes. If it's the brakes, that's a really easy escape, because that means, well, easy job. Do new discs, pads, possibly a caliper. Not too expensive, nothing to worry about. We'll get the car onto new tyres in the morning, and then we can take it for a drive and see what we can hear. Fingers crossed, nothing nasty. Right, so I've just spent the last hour or so down here at Commercial Tyres in Maidstone having a brand new set of Falken Wildpeak AT3s fitted to the Freelander. Well, that sounds lovely and smooth now. Now, I went for these because what I want to do with this car is keep it in its sort of fairly capable semi-off-road but usable, mostly on-road status, and these tyres are ideal for that because it means I've got good on-road stability, good on-road braking and cornering, but at the same time I've got really good off-road tread, so I can use it through the winter time. If it's snowing, I can take it into the woods for, you know, camping, dog walking, other outdoorsy type activities and things, and it keeps it as a useful, I hate to say SUV because it's more of a, well, it is the first of the SUVs, but it's still a proper good old-fashioned four-wheel drive, because it is still having its viscous coupling and everything else in it, so it's got proper connection. So my wallet has been lightened a little bit, and I think these tyres are about 120 or so each, obviously depending on the size. And what we've gone for here is keeping it the same size it had before, which is a smaller wheel with a bigger tyre for more sidewall, more cushioning, more bouncing over things. But there was good news, bad news in terms of diagnosing the fault, because I've got to say, it is much, much quieter on these new tyres. The old ones, you could see the sidewalls were kind of puckering up and the cracks between the tread made it look pretty horrible, and that meant there was an awful lot of road noise coming up through the car. But with the car on the ramp, I asked them to spin all the wheels, have a bit of a feel, and they couldn't feel anything wrong with any of the wheel bearings. So that's one thing checked off the checklist of things to diagnose. I had a look at the brakes while the car was on the ramp. They all look good all the way around. You can't really tell on the drums, but the noise I can now tell because the car is about 20 decibels quieter. Definitely sound coming from the front, which means it's probably the differential or the gearbox. So I'm going to have to do some more checking into what might be wrong with the car. But it's always amazing the difference a new set of tyres makes to a vehicle. If you've got some old tyres that have got to the point where they haven't worn out through usage, but they've got old and cracked, the vehicle, just or the car, whatever, just feels so different when it's on new, supple, soft rubber compared to the hardened stuff that doesn't brake and turn as it should do. And the ride is just really compromised. Now the whole thing just feels much more supple. It's pretty roly-poly anyway, being so tall, but now it's just got such a nicer feeling to it, and it is quieter, much, much quieter. Previously, with all four wheels drumming away, you couldn't really identify where the sound was coming from. Now it's definitely coming from the front, and I'm 90% sure it's front left. I wonder if it just needs the gearbox oil topping up. It's a possibility. The thing is, the only way to check that is to get the car jacked up again, take out the really awkward drain plug, buy another really expensive bottle of gearbox fluid, and top it up. But that might be the only thing we can do. I'll come to a big empty car park so I can try a thing I tried before, which is knock it into gear. Yeah, the grinding noise does continue. That's definitely a bearing of some sort making a noise. Let's put it around a corner. Where is that noise? It's not affected by steering input. It's not affected by drive. It's just all the time the car is moving. That noise is there. Weird. So we're back home with Hippo the Freelander, and we've got a couple more tasks to do on the thing. Now we're actually back home and we can look underneath the thing. Now, it did ride so well on that delicious new Falken rubber. These Wildpeaks are brilliant in terms of on-road performance, and off-road should be quite fun as well. And the car was so much quieter. I almost half convinced myself that actually there was nothing wrong with it at all, but no, there really is something making a grinding noise. So I want to get the thing up in the air and have a look. But we've just had a little problem that my backup axle stands aren't actually tall enough to get the car wheels off the ground, which is suboptimal at best, which means I'm going to have to take the Crown Vic off its jack stands to jack it up over here. Right, so the car is now in the air. All four wheels are floating, levitating above the ground. You've got the 3-ton jack in the front, we've got the big 3-ton jack stands under the back. I do have 2 more of those big heavy duty jack stands, but they're over in the barn. So we're going to make do with cars on a jack, which is exactly how you should always roll in this situation. I'm going to leave the ramp stands down there in case the car does decide to move off. Being automatic, it could potentially drive forward, but if it tries to drive up the ramps, it should stop. That's a plan. That's how plans work. Right, so car handbrake on in park. Before we do anything else, let's put the window down. Make sure nothing is falling off. If I now plonk this into gear, fingers heavily crossed. Right, I'm going to release the handbrake. Can I hear anything from inside the car? I can kind of hear the rushing noise, the grumbly sound. Can't hear anything on the driver's wheel. I'm here on the passenger side. I can see the prop shaft spinning in the centre. Nothing happening around the wheel area itself. Rear passenger, hear the swish of the drum brake, but that is literally it. I guess the differential is doing its thing here. I'm going to put the microphone on the camera and feed you underneath the car to see what you can hear. There's the prop shaft. I can sort of hear something around the front, but I don't know what I'm hearing. Even that differential appears to be very, very quiet indeed. The only thing it could be is maybe the prop shaft. I'm holding the microphone near that front prop thing. I'm holding the microphone near the centre. It may come up on the video where I can't hit myself. That's the centre UJ going to the back of the car. It sounds like it's at the front though. Can't hear a thing down here at the front of the car. Let's pop the bonnet and see if we can hear anything underneath it. So I can hear it in the car now. I can hear it from inside, but not from outside. That's really frustrating. That's a 1000 RPM. Car thinks it's doing about 15 miles an hour. Interesting. I'm going to leave you in the microphone down here and rev the car again. See if everything is obvious. And now I can sort of hear something. Now I can kind of hear a noise, but I cannot identify where it's coming from at all. I'm thinking it must be the prop shaft, and what else can it be? Now interestingly, leaning in from both the passenger side and the driver's side, it sounds like the problem is on the other side to where I am now. Because from the driver's seat it sounded like it was down this side, and from this side it sounds like it's over there. Which I think means it's in the middle. Which means it's going to be a prop shaft, doesn't it? Which is something I'm probably not equipped to sort out. Right, so I'm going to leave that concluded as unconclusive. So it's probably something to do with the prop shaft, and that probably means I'm going to have to take it to a garage to get sorted out, because that's beyond what we can do on jacks and ramps just here. We can do most things, but that one is looking a bit tricky, so I can't even identify the problem. It's going to get dangerous starting to sort it out. So we'll keep on driving as is and hope for the best. Meanwhile, now we've got it back home again and it's nice and sunny, and I've been over and put some fresh red anti-rust paint on the bottom of the car where I did the welding the other day. I can go in with some cavity wax, which I didn't do that before because it was wet and nasty. And now we've got a couple of cans of built handbells knocking around. I can goop up inside that rather messy sill and put some on the back of that inner sill as well, where I welded it for the MOT at the beginning of the year. That was a massive weld, and in answer to all the questions, have I taken the plastic off the other side to see what that's like? No. Am I going to? No. Well, not today anyway. I will eventually, I guess. Fortunately, there is a big old access hole in the side at the front and at the back, so intentional, not rust. So I can put this probe through here. Try to drip on myself too much while I'm doing this. I'll be honest, I've got a feeling this car might be slightly on borrowed time as far as corrosion in the chassis goes, and anything I do is just prolonging the agony. But the longer I can prolong it, the better. I do like the car. There are these handy screw holes where the plastic trim that hid the rust were fixed on. It's dripping everywhere. Okay. This built handler stuff is amazing. I'm not doing the entire floor because I haven't cleaned the entire floor, but the areas that are new metal, and I basically haven't driven the car since I painted it. I painted it well with it. You go straight onto bare metal, or in this case I'm using the anti-rust undercoat primer from BDX people, Bulldog. Whole inner arch does need to be stripped apart, frankly. All the inner wing taken off, and all this wire brush back to bare metal. Not today. Just going to get this flaky stuff off and put some rust filling primer on there, just so I don't lose a bit of metal in the next couple of days. Well, it'll do for the moment. Once that's dry I can put some, well, I can go back and do it all properly later on, but I do need to go and take this arch liner out. And honestly, I'm more worried about the fact the differential prop shaft is going to explode than the fact I'm going to lose a chassis leg at the moment. So, after a day of fixing, faffing, fiddling with the car, what I can conclude is that I don't know what's wrong with it. But it is, thanks to the new tyres, an awful lot nicer to be in. It doesn't sound anywhere near as loud and obnoxious as it did before. So maybe I can just live with the grindiness for a little while. I think what I will do though, is I'll go and buy another bottle of the transmission fluid, and I'll just try and top that one up again, because I know an outside chance maybe it's dropped a little bit in the level and so it's sounding a bit grindy, but it shouldn't do. The only way you can actually test the level of that is to take out the drain plug in the side of the gearbox and top some up. There's no level dipsticks, there's no warning light, there's nothing like that at all. So that's the only thing I can think of, apart from, which is probably more likely if I'm honest, it's going to be the prop shaft or something like that, which is going to be an absolute pain to deal with, and I don't want to deal with it. So yes, we shall jump off that cliff when we come to it. But anyway, that has been a day of hippoing. We've got lovely new rubber, the car is nice to be in. So we've got lovely new rubber, the car is nice to be in. We'll worry about the fact it's making grungy noises fairly urgently, because we are going to be taking this thing camping, although Mrs. Furious's Mini Clubman does have roof bars on it, so we could put the roof tent on the Clubman, but the Hippo is so much more fun. It's a proper camping wagon, whereas the Mini is just an ordinary new car. Anyway, if you've enjoyed, like and subscribe as always, and join us again next time. Well, who knows what we're going to be doing. Might do some stuff on the Rover 75 actually, that'd be good, wouldn't it? Anyway, thanks for watching, goodbye.